If you'd like to be able to listen to the show without ads and have full access to bonus content, that's an option. To find out how, please go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast. Tonight's guest is Daisy from the UK. Daisy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Vic, and thank you for getting in touch and letting me do this. An amazing experience. And hopefully I will learn from it as well.
I hope you do, and thanks for reaching out to share your experiences with me. I definitely appreciate it. Daisy, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Okay, so I'm obviously in the UK. I live on a very old farm. The farm is in the Domesday Book, surrounded by ancient woodlands, fields, rivers, brooks, streams, lots and lots of underground springs. Our farm is way off the road down a long track. In anybody that knows the UK, the Surrey-Sussex border, it's an absolutely stunning area. It's very remote, much more remote than people would think for the UK. I was born here on the farm. I was born in the sitting room beside the front room, beside the fire, and I always grew up, and Mum completely understand how I feel about this. I used to say that this land feels like the very womb that I came from, because that's how much it means to me. I absolutely love it. It feels like my soul just comes back to be here time and time again. It's an incredible place. There were 6 of us kids, and we just grew up playing on the farm, playing hide and seek, playing up in the woods. We used to grab an old sack and take our toys up in the sack to the woods and find old trees that were hollow and build camps and just having a wonderful time as kids should grow up. And we would, at night times, we wouldn't have electric. We would play, if anybody remembers the game, Hunt the Thimble, where we would all play as one of us would hide a thimble in the house, and we would just have wonderful times, wonderful memories of growing up here, isolated on this farm. It was just an incredible experience. I feel very blessed to have had. There's old buildings outside, really, really ancient buildings. We've all grown up. Myself and my brothers and sisters, we all grew up seeing spirits around the farm, in the house. It was such a common occurrence that you didn't really talk about it that often, because it would literally happen every day. We just all grew up, seeing spirits. Some of them had certain names, and some of them were great fun and some weren't. And it's a lovely childhood, I would say, an old-fashioned childhood. We were just left to do our own thing. We would go up the woods early in the morning and not get back till dark, and Mum wouldn't have to worry about it. Everything was absolutely fine. We all had dogs. At one point, there were 6 dogs in the house. We've had ponies. I now have 2 owls, one of which I found when he was 2 weeks old. He'd plopped out the tree as tawny owls do, and the cattle had trod on him, so I hand-reared him, and he now lives in my bedroom with me and comes up the woods with me and my dogs and sits on my shoulder. He can't fly very far, so I feel completely blessed with how my life has been and how it is now. I've just turned 60. I never got married. I didn't want kids. I love kids, but I didn't want kids. I just love the farm so much. I stayed here with my mum, looking after her and the farm. Mum has now passed 5 years ago, but being with what I grew up seeing as in spirits, she's been back to see me, and if I could go into more detail about that is a wonderful thing to know that your loved ones that have passed pop back in to see you. They're absolutely fine. They really, really are. I've seen dogs that have passed, people, all sorts of things. Anyway, yes, my childhood has just been absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. My family and a lot of the villages have had big cat sightings. Okay. When I was very young, we used to push a pram through the woods to see my nanny, and on the way we would pick up firewood for her. And my mum always had a gun tucked in the covers of this old pram in case we came across one of these large cats. I've seen one twice recently, and when a lot of the things that I'm just about to talk about started, we honestly put it down to these large cats. Never ever dreamt of anything being around about what I'm going to talk about. I have a horse who is involved in some of this. I'm trying to think. I love arts. I love painting the woodlands that that I'm surrounded by. I love painting the streams. We used to play in the rivers. We used to make old rafts out of cans from the farm, and just had an absolutely wonderful childhood here. I've just grown up knowing every inch of the woodlands. I can walk for miles without seeing anybody out there. It's just, I feel thoroughly blessed to live this life. And I pray with every day that it continues as it is now. It's just an incredible experience. I go fishing. We all grew up fishing, and I still go fishing. And it's more not just to catch fish. It's just being down there beside the river, listening to the river and seeing the kingfishers and the herons, and a deer coming out from somewhere, and just sitting there in peace, just soaking up this atmosphere. It's I think places like this are becoming rarer and rarer, which is incredibly sad, because as much as I love being here on my own, if people were able to be in places like this and just sit and soak in the atmosphere, soak in the surroundings, it would help so many, just bring them so much peace. I now look after my dad, who can be quite hard work, but in himself is, he's very open. He's seen UFOs. Bear in mind, this is a farmer. He's working 6 days a week. He's outside the whole time. And he's seen UFOs. He actually saw a UFO years ago chasing cattle, and then it completely disappeared in front of his eyes. He's had huge, great big blue orbs following him in his tractor home from work. He's had some amazing experiences. He hasn't seen what I've seen, but he believes me 100%. So much so that he actually said to me a while ago, he said, when I'm out lamping for foxes, he said, what do I actually do if I come across this? He said, what do I do? I said, if I see it in the headlamps in the scope. And I just said, just leave it, Dad. Just leave it in peace. Just leave be, and nothing will happen. And he still hasn't seen it yet, but he's heard things now to leave him in no doubt at all that he believed me anyway. But he's heard things. One of which he was out in the back garden. It was a few months ago now, actually probably the end of last winter, because it was dark, and he heard screaming, and he actually came in, and this is a really strong farmer, and he actually came in and he looked really shook up by what he'd heard, and now to the point now where we don't our dogs are never left on their own anyway, but we have a huge big garden. My bedroom is separate from the house. It's in an old bread oven, believe it or not. It used to be a huge big bread oven, my bedroom, and they used to make so much bread here that it was part of the wages for the people on the farm. So this is what I'm trying to explain, is that my bedroom is separate from the house. It's in the garden, and from there it just runs straight down a hill over the river and up into miles and miles of woodlands and a couple of fields up there. I'm so lucky. I will lay in bed and I can listen to the river and badgers and foxes squealing and other owls. And then, of course, my owl is in my bedroom, and Merlin and Hare start hooting. And I just absolutely love it. I hardly ever watch TV because I just sit here enjoying the peace in the nighttime, and I'll watch YouTube if something is on there of interest to me, and I sit here and read and just listen to the night. It's just, the peace here is absolutely incredible. And I think, here in the UK, unfortunately, with all the building going up and everything, these places are, as I said, becoming rarer and rarer, which is really sad because people need these places. People, they really do. They need to come out to these places and experience this peace in their minds and their hearts.
Wow, Daisy, you sure do paint a beautiful picture of your farm. You need to stop that. You've got me ready to move in with you. You don't happen to have a spare bedroom, do you?
No, we haven't, not now, actually, no. But you're always welcome, of course. We can, yes. Yeah, we'll put you up in one of the sheds.
Well, I can earn really my keep. I'm a good worker.
Oh, you would love it. It's hard work, but it's work you love and you live for, and it's what I call food for the soul. It really is. It's just an incredible lifestyle, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I really wouldn't.
Oh, I don't blame you at all. Sounds like a beautiful place. It really does. If you've had a Dogman encounter and would like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. All right, Daisy, please tell us about your encounters now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Well, I will try, and I will probably forget things and backtrack, but I will try and, because so many things have happened, some large and some very, very small, and it's all those little small bits that help build the picture that I'm trying to remember. But here goes. So around about 20 years ago, I was walking down an old cart track from the farm. I had two dogs with me. I think it was a Westian, a big old cross-bred dog, a big old black shaggy dog. Very, very happy. So these two dogs were trotting ahead of me, sniffing out rabbits and just having a wonderful time as dogs do. And I remember that I was looking down at the ground as I was going down this track, thinking about a problem, as a lot of us do, and I try not to now. And the first I knew that something was going on was these two dogs that at this point had been trotting along happily in front of me came flying back to me and stuck in behind my legs. They were leaning against me. And as they did that, I looked up. Now, ahead of me was a bend that you couldn't see around until you were on it because of the trees either side. Coming around this bend and slightly downhill was this creature. He, like I said, he was coming down a slight hill. So at that point, his bum was higher than his front end. And he was weird. It was so weird. He was doing exactly the same as me. He was looking down at the ground, and in my head, it was just like he was doing the same as me, looking down at the ground, thinking about problems or something. And I must have gasped, and he looked up at me. And at the time, I remember thinking, it was almost like he was young and he was lost and he wasn't expecting to see me there. And he was just as surprised to see me as I was him. But I now believe that that wasn't the case. And I think he showed himself to me on purpose. Anyway, he was, at that point, he was literally one color all over, which was like I describe as Galaxy's sort of chocolate brown. He was, at that point, as he walked towards me, he was walking like a dog, so on all 4 feet, just wandering along, like I said, looking down at the ground, swinging his head slightly from side to side. And as he saw me, it was so quick. He stood up on his back legs and he swung around. So he stood up just like a person, but he was just like a dog. He had hocks like a dog or a horse. I remember his feet were just like a dog, but longer. And I can't honestly say about his front paws or his hands, but I know they were longer than a normal, obviously a dog's paw. He didn't have a tail. And I saw very briefly, I saw his ears just long enough to know that they were long. They weren't round, like a teddy bear. And he had, he didn't have what I hear of in America. You've got these dogmen that have got the muzzles like a pointer or a Dogman, that type of thing. He had a muzzle very similar to, in proportion to his forehead, like a Springer Spaniel, that type of length, so not like a pug, but not really long and pointy, not like a greyhound type thing. I thought at that point that he had gold eyes. I can't say that I saw them clearly, but I just seemed to know that he had gold eyes. I didn't see any sexual parts, but I just seemed to feel that he was male and young. So, as I said, he saw me, he stood up, he span around really, really quickly and charged back up this track on 2 feet. But before he went around that bend and out of my sight, he disappeared in front of me. And so he just vanished. And I liken it to if you're rubbing out a pencil mark on paper and just before it disappears, it sort of smudges and pulls away. That's what he did. And he was gone. I stood there and there was fear, but there was also the feeling of, I've grown up seeing spirits all my life. So I wasn't really, really terrified, but I was scared, but I wasn't terrified. And I think at that point, I thought he was some type of like a woodland spirit. And I just kept thinking, but it's, as people say, it was like a werewolf. And at that point, I didn't believe in them. And I believe 100% what I've seen, but I still cannot get my head round a man turning into a wolf. So I don't think of these dogmen as in the same, because I believe that they are what they are the whole time. So anyway, so from that walk and seeing him, I walked back home with the dogs. I sat down with Mum and had a cup of coffee, and I told her about this, and she listened. But I think already at that point, my brain it felt like it was shutting down. It was like my brain refused to see what my eyes had seen. But again, like I said, because I've grown up seeing spirits in a weird sort of a way, I accepted it. Then life happens and, go out to work and everything and that. And I never, ever forgot about him. But you're not thinking about them every single day. And I carried on walking up the woods. As I've said earlier, I adore the woods. And before the second encounter, which I'm about to tell you about in a minute, I would wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning and think, oh my God, it's beautiful outside. Grab one of the dogs, go off up the woods, watch the stars. I just adore being outside on my own, just me and a dog. So that was 20 years ago, roughly 20 years ago. Since then, lots of things have happened around the farm, animals being hurt or things, silly things like we've had large, really big fat ducks that were, reared for eating and for eggs. And they were in a big open area with a stream, and they would just disappear. And they were big, heavy ducks. If that had been a fox or something in there chasing them around, there would be feathers everywhere and carnage and feathers up against the wire and stuff. There were nothing. It literally looked like someone had just walked in there and picked them up. Now, you could say that, maybe someone stole them, but with all the dogs around, we really didn't think that was the case. It was literally just like we did even go down the line of thinking, well, maybe we've got a huge bird of prey here, picking them up. But even then you'd expect to find feathers somewhere. So there was that, and sheep being killed and finding dead deer. We've all got shotgun licenses. We've all seen deer shot and unfortunately killed by other people's dogs, and we've had to put them down, or damaged by other people's dogs, and we've had to put them out in their misery. Poor things. It's an awful thing to happen to them. So I know what it's like to see, trying to explain deer that have been killed by, I suppose, dogs. Okay, but I found deer that have been killed that really did not look like a dog. All things have happened. My horses on certain evenings been absolutely terrified. Looking out across the fields, eyes bulging out of his head, and he makes what I call an alarm call, which is similar to a shovel going down concrete. It's an awful noise, and if he's doing that, he's absolutely terrified. And he's probably more likely to hurt himself trying to get away from whatever is upsetting him than if we used to, at the time, like I said, think it was a big cat probably just prowling around, and the horses smelt it, and as I said, was probably more likely to hurt himself running up against a gate or something than to actually be attacked by one. So when all these things were going on, we honestly thought, it's the big cats around, we'd be careful for a while. We wouldn't let the dogs out in the garden. Just basic common safety sense around animals. Then, in the year, the winter, between all this time, my mum passed away. And I was late, just before she passed, when she was poorly. I'm going to backtrack slightly. The same year that I saw my first Dogman, I think it was the same summer, my mum had a sighting. She was walking with a dog up from the river, uphill. She said at the top of this hill was a big old maple tree. And she was really shaken when she told me this. She was a really tough woman, really hard woman. And she was shaking. She said as she was going up this hill with her dog, the tree started to shake, okay? She stopped and watched, thinking, maybe it's a landslide, maybe that, it's on the hill, the earth's going down into the river. And it wasn't, and the tree just started to shake. She said it got very violent. It's quite a large tree. As she's standing there watching, thinking, what's going on here? She said these huge big hands came out of the leaves. It was covered in leaf at that point of the year. And she said the leaves basically parted, and this huge, ugly, very scary head glared out at her and she bolted for home with the dog. Really scared her. So, over the years, things have happened, lots of different things. Then in the winter of 23, it got really bad. Lots of things happening. This sounds simple, but there were times when I would go outside to check the horse and I would just get hit by this intense fear. I've heard since then, I've heard of other people talk about this, and it is so intense. I have described it as it's like someone grabbing a bundle of fear out their pockets and just throwing at you, and it hits you hard, and it's like the very muscles, the tissue around your bones go cold with this fear. It's horrendous. It's really, really awful. I've literally had that fear thrown at me several times, and I've gone back indoors, I've locked the doors, and I've just felt like whatever it is wandering around outside, just keeping an eye on me. Like I said, I'm completely on my own. I don't need curtains. There's no curtains. I can stand on the farm at night time and not see another house light. We're that remote. And there would be this fear. It was awful. I had, trying to think. So that was the winter of 2023. We had a problem here with hornets. So I would have to keep my windows shut in my bedroom for a while. I've got a skylight in the roof. This particular night, it was just sort of going into the winter, but at this point it was still quite warm. And I hate being shut in. Absolutely hate it. Doesn't matter how cold it is. I have to have a window open. This particular night, I had the windows shut because of the hornets, and it was getting quite late. And I thought, I can't cope with this. I can't sleep unless I can hear that river and just the outside. So I opened that skylight, and within minutes, I heard something. It came charging up the back lawn, and it was like it hit the side of my bedroom, and I could hear something scrabbling up onto my roof, and it started to run across the roof, heading towards that skylight that I had only just opened. So I leapt out of bed, slammed it shut, and I stood underneath it thinking, I don't know actually if I want to see. I don't know if I want to look up and actually see what that is, because I think I know what it is, but I don't actually want to see something looking down at me. Well, silly or not, I did stand there looking. I didn't see anything, and it went quiet. The next day, I went outside, looked for damage on the roof, looked for skid marks up the wall where something had scrabbled up there. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was unbelievable. So several times at night, I'd be in bed, and we have between my bedroom, which is the old shed, as I said, and the main house, there's an alleyway. Either end of that alleyway, there's two solid oak doors, very solid, but one of them has been cut into a stable door, so it's now in two halves. So basically we can open half of it but keep the dogs in safe. Something every now and then runs up that lawn and hits that door, and I liken it to a big old wild boar charging up that lawn. You can hear it, and then it just hits that door. That door is attached by the hinges to my bedroom, and it literally makes that wall shake. It's really, really scary. If I'm on my own with my dogs, and it's really scary. So at this point, I better explain about my dog. He's not massive. He's about the size of a large collie or Springer Spaniel type size. He's half poodle and half Springer Spaniel, incredibly energetic, and I have never, ever, ever met such an intelligent dog. I literally talk to him like a person, and he will do things. He's incredible. It's quite uncanny, actually. he has an aggressive, well, people say an aggressive problem. I've been told that he has a genetic, what do they call it? Rage syndrome. I personally don't believe that. I think it's just that he came to me. My mum brought him for me as a puppy when she was poorly, and then she passed away. And I think he grew up being very protective over me because of that. And then my brother passed away. And so he's been through all that stress with me and looking after me. And I think that's why he's just incredibly protective over me. Okay. So this dog is always on the bed with me at night time. And when that would happen, instead of, you would think he'd be going mad, charging around the bedroom, barking, he won't. He'll just lay on the bed listening, and he looks at me, and it's almost like he's saying to me, just sit there, just be quiet, don't say a word, just pretend we're not here, sort of thing. So that's what we do. We just sit there and let it pass. Trying to think things how they are. I see lots of orbs here. She had told you about the blue orbs following my dad in the tractor, I believe. I see red orbs. Now, it's when the red orbs appear that I always make sure I'm in before it starts to get dark. Not that, as I explained to you earlier, I love to be outside at night time, or I did until 2023, when all these things really built up. Okay, so May the 27th last year, another beautiful sunny day. As I forgot to say, the first encounter was stunning day, absolutely incredible, beautiful day. I'm walking down a track again, which actually leads onto the original track, but they're about a good half a mile apart, through some woods beside a very, very old church. I know these woods by like the back of my hand. So I'm walking down this wood with my dog that I've got now, my dad's dog. And from the right-hand side, this huge, big creature walked out from the wood on the right-hand side of us, and he crossed the track in front of us. He was absolutely massive, absolutely huge. He didn't stand up. The whole time I saw him, he was on all fours, but at the shoulder, he must have been close to 6 foot tall. He had a chest on him like a horse. He's absolutely massive. His head is huge. I could slightly see through him, but I could see enough of him to make out all the colours that he was. Again, no tail. Had a clear view of his ears. His ears are long and they are pointed, but because he's so big and he was going under twigs and things, he'd laid his ears flat on his head, just like a horse would. As he walked across the track, he turned and he didn't stop walking. He just carried on very gracefully walking across the track. And he did this on purpose. I know he did. So as he's walking, he slowly, very gracefully swung his whomping great big head round and looked straight in my eyes. And he's got the most amazing, beautiful gold eyes. They are incredible. Absolutely incredible. They didn't look like a lot of people say they look like they've got torches behind them. They didn't look like that. They just looked like they were picking up every single little bit of sunlight in those woods, and they were just sparkling, just beautiful. And his colours were, I'm absolutely positive it's the same one, but maybe as he's got older, or in this larger form. However he does this, he's changed colour. He's more beige, brown, and blondes, and little gold highlights, and beautiful colours in him, really. And he looked really well. There was no smell at all, absolutely no smell at all. So, like I said, he swung his head, and he looked straight in my eyes. And at that point, he did what I've heard some other people say. He mind spoke to me. He told me his name, but I'm not going to repeat that, because that's a very private thing and a deep respect between him and me. His name is very ancient, but he did tell me not to fear him. Okay, he said, do not fear me. And he said a little bit more, but again, that's private between me and him. Then he went through a hole out into a field where a huge big oak tree had come down a few years ago, and the hole's still there. And, okay, so the instant that I saw him do this, there was fear there. There was intense fear. But it was for my dogs. I looked down at my dogs and I was like, oh my God, I just thought this thing was going to attack us. And the first thought was my dogs, they're my world, and they're my kids. And then he, like I said, he did that, and he said, do not fear me. And instant, there was no fear, totally the opposite. It was absolutely incredible. I'm like my mum. I can be very tough. I don't cry, but I could have cried with the feeling of intense joy at seeing him again. And over in my head, I kept repeating, oh my God, I don't believe I'm seeing you again. Oh my God, I'm seeing you again. And it was like meeting a long lost member of your family or a very close friend, and you never thought you'd see it again. And it was an absolutely incredible feeling to have something like that people would say is the ultimate monster that is not supposed to exist. To have that feeling coming from him was incredible. Like we had always known each other and always missed each other, and we had just reconnected. I cannot explain how incredible that feeling was. So from there, he went through the hole, and I stood there for a few seconds, just absolutely amazed, again thinking, I can't believe this. I can't believe I've seen you again. Pulled myself together and I thought, oh God, where's he gone? So I went up the bank, looked through the hole, and couldn't see him. Not a sign. So he had either disappeared like he did the first time I saw him, or he had ran very fast down the field. What I didn't say was that he didn't stand up. And I believe, hand on heart, the reason he didn't stand up was because he would have been so tall. I later told my dad about this when I got home, and we were trying to work out how tall he would be now. He would have to be at least 10 foot tall. And I believe that if he had stood up, I would have been terrified. There was absolutely, even him telling me, do not fear me, I would have been terrified, absolutely terrified. I think my heart would have stopped to see something that massive standing in front of you. Is just, your brain just would not be able to cope with it. He would be absolutely massive, at least 10 foot tall. And I stood there thinking, okay, well, that was incredible, but I don't feel fear at this point, and I'm going to, we're going to make our walk shorter, but we're going to carry on walking. So me and the dogs carried on walking around this track, which bared right. And he had either come back in behind us, or there was something else there, because as we bared right, so we were going back around the woodland that he had come from, there was a woodknock, and I don't know if anybody else has heard of these dogmen doing that, but that's what there was, a woodknock. But it was more of a crack, a really sharp crack on a solid tree. it pulled me up short, and I thought, okay, well, that must be him, and he must have come back in behind us, and what's he up to now? And I'm thinking, well, I'm just this is the quickest way out of the woods now. We're not gonna run, but, we're not gonna loiter sort of thing either. So I carried on walking, and there were, just within a few feet, another 2 wood cracks, really loud and really closer, and that scared me. And I stood there thinking, right, well, we're almost out of the track. We're literally out of the woods, and then we'll be on the track down to the old church and then back across the fields home. And almost as we're out of the woods, only about 6 foot away from me, on a very old hornbeam, a solid hornbeam tree, was this almighty, really loud wood crack about 6 foot away from me. I could see the tree very clearly, couldn't see a thing, absolutely nothing at all. So at that point I really was scared, and I left the woods. So I got home, and later on that evening I told Dad about it. Then it was all quite peaceful for quite a long time, and I slowly started to hear things again, screams when I was up in the woods. That's say my dad had heard as well, and we couldn't put it down to anything. We've both grown up, we live here listening to badgers. Badgers, when they're mating or fighting, can make some horrendous noises. I know what they're like. This was not badgers or foxes. Even deer can make weird noises, not like the elk and things that you have, but just our small roe deer can make weird barks and things. This was nothing like that, nothing natural to hear anyway. Trying to think. Last August, I was sitting on the sofa with my dog watching telly. It was a Sunday evening. It was about 10 p.m. Dad was fast asleep in the chair with his dog, and I don't know if I heard something or whether I became aware of it, but this there has to be two, because there's I should think 6 foot tall female Dogman literally glided past the window. We have the back garden is massive, like I said, goes down to the woods. The front garden is very small and then goes straight out onto the farm. And this glided past, so it was on the farm, and it literally glided past the garden fence. There was that, and I gasped and stood up, and my dad woke up and he was like, oh God. And he said, do you want me to come out and check the horse? And I said, no. I said, I'm going to go out there now, before, just I'm going to go out and check my horse now and make sure he's fine, and just do it as quick as I can, get back indoors, and you stay in here and look after the dogs, which is what we did. Nothing else happened. Absolutely fine. Now, about 5 months ago, we had a friend here. We all had something to eat, me, Dad, and the friend, and the back door kept banging, like something banging on the back door. And me and Dad have heard it lots of times, so we didn't take a lot of notice. And the friend looked at us, sort of thing, but we didn't bother to say anything because it happens. And I was thinking, okay, well, that's happened, so it's going to be quiet for the rest of the evening. I've got nothing to worry about, because once it happens, it normally goes quiet. But very, very wrong. I went out, checked my horse, and nothing happened, but I could feel something. It wasn't that intense fear, but I was very aware of being watched. I got into my bedroom with my dog, and I could feel I was being watched. So I thought, right, put the TV on, watch something really silly that you never watch, a comedy, lighten up the atmosphere, and just try and get your head away from feeling this sensation of being watched, which I did, and it did not work. It didn't work at all. And the stable door that goes out into the back garden that is attached to my bedroom something crashed against that. And I remember thinking, just turn the TV off, turn the lights off, go to bed, and nothing's going to happen now because, again, the back door's banged, that's crashed, that's going to be it now for a few more nights. It's going to be fine. Got into the bed, my dog was in bed with me, and about half an hour later, I became very aware of something standing outside my bedroom door. Something standing outside my bedroom door, and then I could hear it, and best way of describing it was like two massive hands on that door, slowly pushing it in the frame. And I actually went to the door and I stood the other side of it, and whatever it was seemed to sense me there, and it stopped. And all this time, my dog, who, as I've explained, can be incredibly aggressive, he's laying on the bed just looking at me with his eyes big, like, just leave it, just come back to bed, please, and just let's pretend it's not there. So very quietly I went back to the bed, sat on the bed, and within seconds of me sitting there, it was like the door started to creak from pressure on the outside. And then it did this huge big, it wasn't a bang, it was like a boom. It didn't open, but it was like the door did this huge big boom in the door frame. And then it was like this shockwave. It's the only way I can describe it. This shockwave went straight through my bedroom. It was so violent. My dog, when the boom went off, my dog sat up to be with me, and he was like, what on earth is going on here? He sat up and it pushed him over sideways. It knocked my owl straight off his perch, just like a hand had hit him. And all these thoughts go through your head. And while this is happening, I'm thinking, oh my God, my owl is going to break a wing. He's going to hurt himself. And this violent shockwave went straight through my bedroom. And I don't know if it went out the open window or whether it just was dissolved into thin air. It went quiet for a few seconds, and me and my dog are sitting there, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I've never, ever had that. And that was, far scarier than seeing him, if that was him or whatever's going on here. And the atmosphere was, you really could say, electric. And within that thought, since all these things have been happening, I've put this really big pair of wind chimes up outside my open window, so that if anything walks through there, it's going to go off and I'm going to be aware it's out there. Whatever it was, it grabbed my window in the open frame. It pushed the window in so violent that it popped back out again, and then it grabbed the wind chimes that are hanging up on the wall outside my bedroom window, and it grabbed them, it pulled them off the wall and threw them about 5 foot down the ground. I found them the next day. I think that was the scariest moment in my life. I was terrified. I really was. I was like a little girl. It was absolutely awful. I was worried about my owl. I was worried about my dog. I was thinking whatever it was going to, if it had been in my bedroom, if that shockwave had been whatever it was, if it had been in my bedroom, or whether that was the energy, I'm never going to know. But it was, honestly, I was terrified, absolutely terrified, and hardly slept at all. I've had something standing outside my bedroom window breathing, and I've done a recording of that, and I can hear it, but obviously I know what I'm listening to, and other people like Vic can't hear it. Obviously Vic believes me, but some people hear it and some people can't. The people that do hear it look at me like, oh my God, how do you sleep with the window open? All these things have happened, but nothing, I've never been hurt by it. And I had such a wonderful encounter with him, whereas other people have terrifying encounters, really, really terrifying encounters. And I feel like I now have this, like a soul connection with him. And I feel that my connection with him is so good because I was born here. Maybe he was born here. And I absolutely adore this land like he does. I respect this land. I respect him. Literally every time I'm up those woods, I tell him I respect him. I thank him for looking after me and my dogs and letting us be out there safe. And I tell him I respect him. And in a way, I almost feel like he's looking out for me now. That's the connection I have with him. It really is incredible. I can't say that I feel, in a way, I can't say that I feel blessed because I now know that I have what a lot of people would describe as the ultimate monster, the monster that came out from under your bed, as so many people say, that isn't meant to exist, and I now know does. And then you, as so many other people have said, if he exists, what else exists? Exactly what else exists? So I have this creature that looks absolutely terrifying. You know, like I said, if he had stood up the second sight, and I honestly believe my heart would have stopped. Well, I would have had a fit. It would have been so terrifying. But he didn't stand up, and I believe he didn't stand up because he didn't want to scare me. And because he knows I respect this place, and I love this place. I adore it. It's like I said, it feels like the womb that I came from. And I believe that's why he's fine with me. Okay, so probably about 6 years ago, this wood structure appeared, and I say no one else walks in those woods. I mean, I can't say that. I can't guarantee that, can I? But I'm positive no one else walks in those woods. There's no footpath there, and I never see other dog poo there or people's footprints there, you know. So this tree structure appeared, built up around a tree, and basically it was branches, some of them quite big, some small, and they would all be leant up against the tree, and over the years it got bigger and bigger. And then I started placing just little twigs or feathers in this tree as a thank you. And I would always thank him for letting me and the dogs be up there safe, and telling him that I respect the place and I would try and keep them all safe. And this structure between me and him got bigger and bigger over the years. It was probably at the base 10, 12 foot around, maybe even a bit bigger on the ground. And then in places 4 foot high, 6 foot high, 8 foot high. It was really big. Last Monday, I went up there in the evening. It'd been a really busy day. I hadn't had a chance to go for a walk, so I took just myself and my dog up there, and I didn't go deep into the woods because I was sensing something. But I did go to the wood structure. I'd picked up a feather on the way there, and I placed it in the top of the wood structure, and I thanked him for letting me be there again, keeping me and my dog safe. And that was that. Walked home absolutely fine. Early Tuesday morning was going to be a busy day, so I thought I'd go up the woods before, we get busy on the farm. And this really knocked me flat because I got there. Bear in mind, I'd been there the night before. Everything fine. Placed a feather in the wood structure. Thanked him. The wood structure had completely disappeared, like it has never been there. It looks like it's just been beamed up into space. It's gone. I've spent ages. I've spent 2 hours one day and an hour another wandering around looking for pieces of it. Not a single twig, not a large branch, absolutely nothing. The feathers, the twigs, the branches, the whole lot has just completely gone like it never ever was. And it absolutely knocked me flat. Seeing that, honestly, I can't say, because seeing this every single day, and then it's just gone, completely gone. Not a sign of it, not an absolute sign. So that's happened. And then, so I'm standing there looking at this where it was, thinking, I can't tell you what I was thinking. I think my mind went blank because I was just, could not believe what I was looking at. Opposite where this tree structure had been, I had made what I called my own little thanking station for him. And occasionally I would pick up pieces of wood with holes in it and place them there, or pretty feathers. And a particular summer, I had taken a piece of clay from the stream and moulded it into a little figure, and I placed it in this tree as a thank you. So the tree structure has completely gone. Beside where it was an old hornbeam tree with just two tall branches, probably maybe 4 to 6 inches through. So not massive, but big enough to, a person couldn't break them just with your hand. These two small trees had been bent over, twisted probably 5 or 6 foot up, just enough to make them pliable without breaking them. They had been bent over down to the ground. At the very tips of them, they've been twisted together like someone's tied them together. And on top of that, 2 pieces of silver birch, probably 5 foot long by 6, maybe 8 inches through, so heavy enough there's, they are heavy, have been placed on top of that to hold it down. The very tips of that, whatever made it, the very tips of those 2 branches that have been twisted together very, very gently touch that little clay figure that I placed into that tree. Now, the day before, the evening before, when I'd been up there, that figure had been covered in leaves. There was absolutely no way that anybody knew it was there. Absolutely no way. I remember looking at it thinking, maybe I should clean the leaves off. But it's natural, it's nature, so leave the leaves on there. So absolutely no one, guaranteed, hand on heart, knew it was there. And there is absolutely no way a person or a group of people could have removed that structure without at least dropping one bit of wood anywhere. It's just completely gone, like it was beamed up, and it was never ever there. Almost coming to the end of this, but again, all I can say is that trying to think. Well, things are waking up now. There's an energy building up, and I really don't want it to be like the winter of 2023. But on the other hand, so that was the winter of 2023 when it was really bad. I saw him again last year, 24, and he told me not to fear him. And I don't fear him. I believe he's some type of a soul guardian for me. That's how I look at him now. He looks after me and my dogs. That said, his appearance is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. But I have to remind myself to look inside and not just the appearance. That's so much easier said than done, because, if I'm out there doing my horse at night time and he walks straight up to me, I believe he has walked straight up to me, and I couldn't see him. I almost fell over. I heard him walking straight up to me on a very, very cold, crispy night, frosty night. Walked straight up to me, and I was so frightened. I stepped back and almost fell over, and I could feel this energy right in front of my face. I was almost waiting for something to huff or spit in my face. And there was nothing. I couldn't see absolutely anything. Anyway, so if I bump into him, of course, I'm going to be terrified. And if he stands up, I think I'll have an absolute heart attack. But again, I just believe that he looks after me. He's some type of guardian of the woods, of this land and the rivers, and he needs respect. And something that size, you can't help but respect. You can't help but be scared of. But I do. I respect him, and there's obviously a reason we have this connection. I'm maybe meant to learn something from him, or maybe he's learning from me the ways of us. But I feel blessed. It's a difficult thing to explain. I feel blessed that he's in my life, but at the same time, yes, he can be incredibly terrifying. You really could. Things like this, I think your heart could give out. It's so scary. But I do feel that connection with him. He's just an incredible experience and a part of living this life that I do here. And it's amazing.
What an amazing life you live. And the word amazing really doesn't do it any justice. It really doesn't.
No, it's beautiful. I wouldn't have it any other way. Wouldn't have it any other way at all. I know I've missed out things, but there's so much has happened. There was a particular night I remember telling you about before that my horse was absolutely terrified. He's not shut in his stable at night, but he has a yard that he can go in and out of, so he can walk at night if he wants and then go straight back into his stable. Well, one night he was absolutely terrified and hitting the gate. So and snorting, like I've explained before, with this noise that he does. And his eyes were bulging out and stock. So I shut him in his stable, and he was threatening to come out over the door. So I shut the top door, and he was literally climbing the walls. And my dad came out, and we ended up spending half the night outside with shotguns. And at the time, we both put it down to a big cat. And, the horse was more likely to frighten himself trying to get away, even though he was contained. And but now I think that my horse was probably smelling, this Dogman, my Dogman. And, to explain it, you see something like that, and they are absolutely terrifying. So what on earth does a horse do with his natural instincts? All he wants to do is get away, and he will hurt himself. But again, I keep going back to the fact that he's never hurt me or my dogs, thankfully. As scary as it is, I have to tell myself that he's never hurt me, and I don't believe he will. I believe that he looks after me. I don't know if he looks after me from whatever. I don't know what he looks after me from, be it other people or another dogman or what, but I do feel I have a very strong feeling that he looks out for me. And so I always give my respect.
Well, like we talked about, he sure has had plenty of opportunities to hurt you if he wanted to, so I'm glad you haven't lost sight of that fact. I'm never going to say any of these guys are safe to be around, but like I said, it does count for something, the fact he's had all these opportunities to harm you, but he never has.
I believe, probably hundreds of thousands of times he could have been walking right beside me, and I didn't have a clue. I've seen him. I've described it as looking through the edge of a beveled edged mirror. So it's like you're seeing a patch moving, if that's it. People describe it as from the predator, and that is exactly what I've seen. And I've seen that 3 times very close to me, but other times I've felt him, and I've like I've said, I believe these creatures could literally be walking beside you and you wouldn't know until they choose, and they do choose to show themselves. I don't believe it's by accident. They do choose. And there's so many, are we ever going to know really what they are? I've gone through so many different ideas to one minute his flesh and blood, the next minute his spirit, and then I believe he's flesh and blood again. And I think maybe he's a bit of both. I think maybe he's flesh and blood with different gifts of being able to do things like disappear in front of your eyes and mind talk. And I don't know if we'll ever really know what they are. Maybe we're not meant to. I don't know.
Well, they definitely have a lot of moving parts, so I think there's a strong possibility we never will, but I guess time will tell. Well, we're over an hour into this, Daisy. I've got a ton of questions for you. Would you be up for coming back for a part 2 for a Q&A?
Definitely. Yeah. It's always interesting hearing other people's ideas and views. I think that's really good because I learn from them and they learn from me and we all learn from you,
Well, that's great. Yeah, if you benefit from having questions thrown at you, well, I've got plenty of questions to throw at you, so I think this will be a win-win.
Okay, right. We'll try and do that then. Yes.
All right, well, yeah, if that's the case, I'll get with you to schedule that recording for part 2, and we'll take it from there. But like I told you before, thanks again so much for coming on to share these experiences with us. I really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure because, again, it's so interesting, we will all help each other. I mean, I feel so sorry for the people that have terrifying encounters because they really must be absolutely terrifying when you have a bad encounter. I just I can't say enough that I'm incredibly blessed to have him with me how he is, because if he hadn't been like that, I would have lost my freedom and been in fear for my animals and everything. It's like you say, you can never guarantee really how it's going to be, but thankfully I am, I believe mine's okay with me anyway.
Well, if he isn't okay, then he's a lot better than he could be, so thank goodness for that. But like I said, thanks again so much for coming on, and of course, I'm looking forward to this part 2.